really excited. So when we talk about launching yourself into the next level as a person, for me, what resounds is the idea of preparation. Yes, because before you can launch into your next level, I feel you need to be prepared. You can't prepare for everything, but at least you have to prepare for so many of the things that you expect. So, my presentation is basically going to border so much on the aspect of preparation. So, the first thing I want you to do, as a person that's listening to me right now, watching me, or yeah, glued to this presentation, I feel like as we are talking about preparation, I'd want you to write down what your next level looks like. So how would you describe your next level? Can you describe it, Kami, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If I
Yeah. Do you have a description of your next level?
I think it has to do with a different place, a kind of a higher level or a higher stage to my current disposition. So
Yes.
I think that's
Great.
what my next level is
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. Great, great. So yeah, in your notebook, I just want you to like write a detailed one, like personally, because it's always a personal journey. So personally, if you can detail your next level, how would you present it? Like, what are the things that describe your next level? I feel like it's easy to say, um, at 25 I want to be a millionaire, or at 25 I want to have this, but most of us do not really have a mission that, the things outlined that we want to really achieve. I feel like, that is the part of preparation that is really cardinal. So what does your next level look like? I feel like that is the first thing, that I would like you to jot down. Like, what does your next level look like, apart from, the major goals, to say I want to be, in this place, I want to, have this following, I want to have this level of influence, but how do you get there? How does it look like? I feel like if you jot that down, you'll be able to have a clearer vision of where you are going. Because I feel like most of the times, um even as we pray for things, most of us will just be like, God, I'm praying for this, but you have no actual plan in mind of how to get there. So I feel like that is where preparation comes into play. And it's something that I've learned, over the years, to say, um, make sure you are not uh, at the right time, but the wrong person. Make sure you're not the wrong person at the right time. It's very, very important that, you get yourself to, where you want to be. And I've come to realize mostly that it is preparation that opens our eyes to opportunities, because it is not all the time that an opportunity will be handed to you. Most of the times it's hidden beneath or behind the things that we do, or the people that we become. So the more you work on yourself, if you read a lot into something, it is all you see. I don't know if you've experienced that, to say, when you start learning something, that's now when you pay attention to it. So you find that, for example, before I started learning programming, computer science, I'd look at all of these things, and there would be, I'd be oblivious about it. And, because of the ignorance I had towards it, I'll just watch it, go. But once I started learning about it, I started recognizing things, to say, okay, this is something technological. This is what is happening here. So you get to pay attention to the things, that you prepare for, the things that you um, constantly take in. That is why we say, if you read as many books as you can and gain knowledge about a certain thing, then you're going to recognize the things around you. You're going to recognize opportunities around you. And that is one of the most important things. So when you are prepared, you're going to see opportunity, because it's not all the time, like I said, that is going to be handed into you. So you have to be the right person at the right time. And sometimes we are the wrong people at the right time. Sometimes the right time manifests, but because you have not placed yourself in a certain position, you will not be able to see it. And another thing about the next level, something interesting is that, sometimes the next level is not high up. Sometimes the next level is a slope. Sometimes the next level requires you to go down. But most of the times we think, the next level is all about rising higher and higher. If I give an example of, something that I had to go through personally, that should be 2019. I released a book, and yeah, I was a young person by then, and I think I was in a difficult class at the second learning institution in Zambia, so it was a difficult phase, and it's a difficult class. Like, everybody has to go through it, so they understand that it's very difficult. And I got to write a book, and it was successful, and I was young by that time, and I got to have all of this exposure. I got to be on TV. I got to do so many things. I was on radio. I was recognized. I was everywhere on social media. And I felt, I used to call that phase as the rise and rise of Chishimba Malisawa. I used to to say that most of the times. But little did I know that the things that followed were not really going to be something that I would think is a rise, because most of the times when we think about the next level, we think about rising higher and higher. But in context, I wasn't really rising in the next phases of my life, because I felt as though everything was not working, just after all that praise, all that greatness, all that. And it's like I attracted an audience to myself. And so the more people, I had a lot of people, following what I was doing. And then I reached a point where now it was sloppy, and nothing was really working. I felt like I had to go backwards because I had to change schools, and so many things happened. And so for a while, I didn't recognize that as a period of preparation, or as a next level, because in my mind, the next level was a great place, a higher level. But sometimes the next level is a sloppy one, because if I never actually got to go through the things that I went through, I would not be here today. And you know this is just so we learn to be grateful to the negative, to the sloppy sides of our lives, because those things prepare us adequately. I remember when I was going to the airport, I used there's an application that we use in Zambia where yeah, like you call somebody like a taxi, and then it comes to pick you up. And I remember having this conversation with the person who was driving, and he was telling me, I think we had this conversation, and he ended up talking about, if you could travel to the past, what would you do? And he said something interesting. He said, I would go and fix all my mistakes. And I asked him to be without. I asked him to say, without your mistakes, would you really be who you are today? And he thought for a while, and he was like, I've never really thought about that. Because he finally got to realize that it is the mistakes, it is the negative things, it is those aspects that made him who he was. So we are not really very appreciative of our the negative sides of our lives, because we don't recognize that as a stepping stone. We don't see a silver lining to it. But when we manifest in the next level that we appreciate and recognize, that's when we see to say, okay, that really helped me to get where I am. So even the negatives build, give you a build. Even the negatives help you to grow. So even the negative sides of life, for me, that is the next level. For me, that is pushing through in order to reach where I want to go. So the next level will not always be roses. The next level will not always look like you know this great path that you undertake. Sometimes the next level will be difficult. Sometimes the next level will be sloppy. But all I understand about life is that it is more of preparation for the things that lie ahead. So as God prepares you, stay strong and understand the seasons, understand the times. and that is one of the most important things. So if you were to go back in time, do not go and change your mistakes, because you would not be as great as you are right now. It is a total of the successes and the failures that make you who you are right now. So prepare, prepare and understand what preparation is. Like I said, as we started, most of the times we have no idea how to get where we want to be. But that is the whole aspect of preparation. Read, understand yourself, and know where you want to go and what you want to be. Paulo Coelho says, "Our lives begin to end when we think that at some point we lose power and a sense of self, because sometimes life just goes in the direction that it wants to go and we lose touch of it. That's what some people believe, but that's not true. There's always a part you play in your own life, and make sure that you have that hold as you reach that level. Okay, so that is preparation. I think I can go on and on. I think there's so much to touch on when it comes to preparation. But like I said, just make sure that as you're going through situations in life, you interpret it as a preparatory phase. I think I was talking to someone recently, and I was telling that person to say, if God blessed me with what I have now, like 2 years ago, I wouldn't have appreciated it and I would have wasted it. There are so many things that God delayed me on. There are so many things that I didn't get there and then, because God had plans of making me better and accommodative of those things. So sometimes you have something and you lose it because you're really not ready for that. And at the right time, you're definitely going to get the things that you're supposed to have. Yeah, so preparation for me is like a very, very interesting topic. And yeah, so preparation. And I also want to talk about expectations, the expectations. We as people have, this great and grand expectations about ourselves. And, it's a good thing, yes, but the level of expectation should not be so low that you feel like you don't deserve the good things. And again, it shouldn't be too high such that you feel like you deserve better than everybody. So it has to be at a certain balance. Now, that is where the challenge is for most people, finding that balance between being too expectant and being less expectant. So expectations, I think one thing about growth is that it deals with your expectations, because I think as we are growing up, we feel like, oh, the world is ours, and then we are introduced to actually what life really is. And most of the times as people, we fail to balance. It's the same with ambition. Ambition moves hand in hand with expectations. So you find that you used to be ambitious. I used to be that person at some point where I used to be ambitious, and then I didn't reach where I expected to reach at a certain level. And so my ambition kind of dried down, and I know that a lot of people find themselves in that situation where they cannot really find a balance between high expectations and low expectations. So it is very, very important to find a balance. And one of the things that helps you find a balance is, like I said, preparation. You prepare for what you're supposed to get, because if you read, if you do, if you what else do you do as you prepare? Some people watch videos, self-help videos. We develop habits, we develop a good mental attitude. All of those preparatory phases have to be put into play, and understand that you are human. A failure is always part of life. Failure teaches us what to do and what not to do. And again, I don't really want to go so deep in failure because it's one of my favorite things to talk about. But learn to prepare for life. This is why we listen to people who've been ahead of us. This is why we um, get to interact and learn so many things. So that is a preparatory phase that is quite cardinal. Okay, so manage your expectations by being prepared enough, for what you want to achieve. Prepare for the good, prepare for the bad. That's that. And I feel like that is one of the things that we get to learn when we look at people already successful, We learn to say there are bad things in there. There are certain things that happen that you never thought would ever happen to you, and there are certain things that happen that are good, but you never really expected them to happen. So that's just how life is. So you have to prepare for the good, and you have to prepare for the bad. I cannot overemphasize on the importance of preparation. So preparation also helps you manage your expectations. Okay, so yeah, I guess I've done so much on that. Another thing I want to talk about, um, okay, is as you now going to the next level. So you prepare, right? And one of the things that I've come to appreciate on a personal level is the power of originality. You know, it is something I've come to learn, over the years, to say being original is one of the most important things that you can do for yourself, because the world is not looking for what already exists. It's there, and there are so many moments whereby you find somebody wants to sound like someone else for them to feel like they can sing. We find so many people trying to be so many different people, because they feel like those people that are ahead, or those people that have succeeded, are like a template of what success should look like. But that's not true. All of the things that have thrived in this world are things that existed in someone's imagination. So be original, be yourself, always exude originality. I always tell people, especially upcoming writers, to say, um, just be yourself, and you can literally do anything, in this world. And I feel like the things that we've come to appreciate now, the things that we love, the airplane, the aircraft, the first time I got on a plane, what ran through my mind was this was someone's imagination, because I was so perplexed to see, everything that's going on. And, the first time you enter a vehicle, I think I was, I was quite young. I can't remember what ran through my mind, but you get to appreciate where certain things have come from, because it is, something that was just in someone's imagination. And people of a long time ago, I remember I had this old newspaper. It's an e-copy, and it something was written in it to say, the first, in the future we'll be carrying cell phones in our hands. A cell phone can even fit a pocket, and people thought that was crazy. And I feel like that is what launches you out there. If you want to make an impact, if you want to be influential, do something that, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that people do. It just has to come from you. When I first entertained the idea of writing a book, the people approached who used to tell me, what would you know? You're too young. What would you know at this particular age? But I just went on and did what I had to do. And it opened so many doors for me. So I feel like that is something that we need to embrace. And I think from then on, I've come to be very appreciative of being original. So be original, be yourself, take on the strides that people fear, because that is what is going to launch you into being who you are. People celebrate something new and something successful, so go deep within yourself and do what you have to do. So be original, be yourself. That thought that you entertain, that idea that you have that seems to be so impossible, is what the world is waiting for. So be original, in everything that you do. And you're going, search within yourself. And this is something that I tell, almost everyone that I tend to work with on any particular project. I tell them to say, just be yourself, express yourself, in what you're doing. And it will be great. Yeah, so be original, um like I was saying. And another thing I'd want to share, um is being intentional. So those my second book is called Intentional Healing. Yeah. So there I talk about an interesting concept, which is the fact that time is a platform. Time is not going to heal you. A lot of people say time is the healer, but the correct saying is that time is a tool for healing, because in time you heal, but if you do nothing about it, you're just going to suppress it, and it's even worse, than having the problem. So time does not necessarily heal you. Time is a platform for you to use and become who you want to be. If you say time is the healer, it's like saying time makes you rich, which is true. Time makes you rich, but not doesn't just take time for you to be rich. It doesn't just take time for you to heal. It takes intentional steps in that time. What are you doing with the time that you have? That is one of the most important things. So time is not the healer. Time will not make you necessarily rich. It is what you do in that time that will contribute to who you become. So this is to say, be intentional. Be intentional about your growth. Be intentional about the kind of person that you want to be. Like I said earlier, a lot of us don't really think through so much of who we want to be. Like I've met a lot of people, and they tell me to say I want to be great, but what are you doing to be great? That is the $1 million question. It always has to start from somewhere. A lot of us are waiting for us to reach a particular level. I have a friend, she's so passionate about helping other people, like doing charity, doing all of these things, and she'll tell me to say, I really want to do these things. But the problem is that when we envision charity, we think about having this orphanage, or taking tons and tons and tons of clothes to orphanages and giving that to them, and that's how we envision it. But it is simple. It is as simple as going to an orphanage and helping them clean up. It is as simple, when you start from where you are, things tend to make sense as you go. So start from where you are. I feel like there is I feel like there's no excuse, for not doing something that you have to do. There's particularly no excuse, because at the end of the day, we always have something that we can start with. Whatever it is that you want to do, start with something right now. If you want to be great, start, in what field do you want to be great? Some people just say, I want to be great. And this is what frustrates us, because we are hardly prepared. I remember in 2020, I invested into something at that particular time, and I lost quite an amount of money. And yeah, at that particular time, you find that I had these resources at my disposal, but I was not, I never invested in financial learning, because for me it was all about. That's why I had this mindset a while ago to say, I didn't believe so much in preparation. And that's why I keep on mentioning preparation, because that was me. I never really believed so much in preparation. I believed so much in just tackling the issue right there and then. But what happened was that I had to lose a lot in order for me to learn to say, okay, this is something that I'm supposed to do. So um, start from somewhere. Start from somewhere. If you're passionate about helping other people, it doesn't always have to be money. In the Bible, we learn of how Peter was asked for something. He said, I don't have silver or gold, but what I have, I'll give you. Stand up and walk. It's as easy as that. And you find that what Peter gave him was a lifetime. Other people are giving him money, but Peter gave him a lifetime of making more money. And that's how it's supposed to be. You have something to offer. You never know. Some people have money to give, but if you have a heart to give, then you have everything, that it takes. So whatever it is that you want to do, start from somewhere. Start with a business plan. Start with, jotting it down. I've seen people who had business ideas, and they wrote them down and they gave them to someone, and he sponsored that idea. So the good part, or the difference between that person and most of us, is that the person is prepared. The person has a prepared framework of how they're going to do something, how they're going to go about it. They have a business plan, and such that if I share my idea, someone is going to invest in it. People are already prepared. If you say, I want to be a humanitarian, I want to be a philanthropist, what have you done about it? And that is the $1 million question. So that is the concept that I've always believed in. There's always something you can start with. It just can't be an idea in your mind. And the funny part about life is that thoughts are things. Someone said thoughts are things, and the concept or idea behind it, at least from my understanding, is that it's something that is given. It's something that can be exchanged amongst people. I had this idea, I think, when I was younger, of um I was writing something in my book and I wanted to share it with people, but I was too shy to do that. It was during those times when I was just in high school, and yeah, I want to share something with others, but I felt to. Yeah, and I called it a personal conversation and I started writing about it, but I was too shy to share with anyone. And then I was so shocked, just I think a couple of weeks later, I stumbled upon this discussion at church, and a certain preacher said exactly the same things that I was writing down in my book. So you find that if you don't really act on the things that you want to do, another person will think about it. There are interesting concepts of how thoughts are exchanged and how people get to have these thoughts and ideas in their minds. It's pretty cool. Um, you can look it up. It's interesting, but thoughts. All I'm saying here is that thoughts, can be someone, whatever you're thinking right now. um, the concept is that thoughts vibrate at a certain frequency, and so two people can capture the same thought if they're actually thinking at the same frequency. It's actually, like I said, it's a cool concept. Yeah, but I think it's true because I've got to experience that. I think more than twice. When I'm thinking about something, I'm laid back into launching into it, and somebody else just does it. It's crazy, but it's true. So as you have your ideas, there are no excuses, I believe. When I released that book, I was very young, but it is the action orientation within me and the confidence that I had to say, okay, I think I know what I'm talking about, and I think this will be a pretty great book. I remember the first book I wanted to publish was not accepted by some publisher. He told me, this is not good and everything. So I got to work on my second one. And when people still said, you need to, because they wanted me to come out exactly the way that other people came out, and I was like, this is not who I am. And that what has made my book successful and read by a number of people is the fact that I am very intentional about it, and I am very original when it comes to my work, such that I don't, it's not that I wouldn't want to, but I don't really, it's just a brand for myself where I don't quote other people in my book. I just write it like that. It's my own personal branding, and there's always a story inside of my books and everything. So it's always a personal branding that is, very essential. And like I said, do be original and be intentional. If you feel like this is what you have to do, then go ahead with it. All right, so that is an interesting point. So yeah, be original. Make sure that everything that you're doing, there's always a touch of you yourself. It's a very, very important concept, and you find that the world today is very competitive. People are coming up with so many amazing and different things, but the idea that you have is something. I've gone to places where I pitch an idea to people and they're like, oh no, it's not really that good. But the same idea, other people would definitely appreciate it. So I feel like one thing that I'm communicating is, first of all, be prepared. Be prepared for anything, because like I said, opportunities will be recognizable to you if you're a prepared person. That is the only time that you recognize opportunity. You find that, and when you become prepared, you find that there's so many opportunities out there. There's so many things you hear, so many things you see, and that is how the world is operating right now. So be original, be prepared, be intentional. I feel, no one is going to live your life for you. That is true. No one is going to live your life for you. And if we look at, if we look at the way the world works, at some point, we feel like we're inadequate. We feel like, that lack of confidence and everything. I feel like, you just have to, if you're intentional enough, you're gonna be confident. if you prepare enough, you're going to be confident. That is the key to confidence, preparation. So preparation is the key to so many things. So today, as you sit in your free space, ask yourself, what do I want to do? I always think about greatness, but what am I doing really? What am I doing to be great? What am I doing to be influential? I think this is why people, it resorts to drastic means, because from a young age, you've always felt the urge to be great, but you have nothing to show. You're not thinking about it. You're not doing anything about it, and that's the crazy part, and that's the crazy side. So as you prepare, as you dream, make sure you prepare, what is. And one of the things that helps in preparation is, again, knowing your purpose. Purpose is an interesting concept. And after my third book, The You Power, I think I touched a little bit on purpose, and I had a number of people asking me what purpose is, and how they can achieve that. I feel like there are a lot of theories about purpose. From my understanding, things like writing books, that's not purpose. It's a tool you use to reach your purpose. So for me, my purpose is to teach, is um to be there for other people. It's to help people. I feel I resonate so much in helping people emotionally, and helping people financially. I think I like that. I am on the emotional part. I'm not on the financial part yet, but I still, and this is, I think this would be a practical example of what I mean. A lot of us would want to help people in a particular way, and we feel like we're not there yet. There's always something else that you can do, and it is your homework actually to think about that. So whatever you're praying for, whatever you are believing in God for, whatever you're asking God for, really, how prepared are you for it? What have you done about it? How do you describe what you want to do? Why do you want to be great? In what field do you want to be great? So, when I was talking about purpose, the basic thing I wanted to say is that we should not mistake the things, tools to reach purpose with the purpose itself. So identify your purpose broadly and then narrow it down. So for me, it was like, I love to help people. I love helping people emotionally. I love helping people to cope in certain situations. And so I said, what am I going to do about that? How am I going to communicate what's on my heart? And then I said, I'm going to write books. There are people who love to make other people's lives easier. Those are the people that make these grand things that we see around, that make communication websites and all of that. So identify your purpose and understand where you fall, which category you're in, and that will really, really help you. So it's very important. Be intentional. Be intentional about who you are. Be intentional about where you are. And one thing about this opportunity that I had, to come to this end of the world, um it was something that I never thought about at that particular moment. And this is what this is why I keep saying, be intentional. I never, I mean, I was saying be prepared, because people will see what you do. Because I remember going through, other people were so excited about this, and they kept on trying to get through, because it is a very competitive thing to actually get to Europe and do certain things. So this was competitive. In these, the people I knew were trying so hard to get through the system and everything. But I never moved a finger. I was like, this is not for me. But at the end of the day, when I went through it, it was whole. It is a long story, actually, for another day. But when I got called to do that, when I got called upon and they asked me to represent and everything, it's anyway, it's a long process. But the whole point is for me to reach where I am, or for me to be at this end. um it's because of um preparation, I must say, because the people that were at the forefront f- uh, um of seeing this project through, actually stumbled upon one of the videos that I did, and I was speaking to people and I was doing all that, and they were like, this is the person. And that's how I got it. I got to learn about that later on, so and that is a lesson that taught me to say, just be prepared. Have something that you're known for. You shouldn't be known for sharing memes. You shouldn't be known for doing all of these crazy things. And some people feel like their social media life is different from who they are, or their life in this way is different from who they are in that way. Carry yourself all the time. Never leave yourself behind. It's not a thing of sometimes I'm like this, like a chameleon. When you're here, you're that way. When you're there, you're that way. Always present your best. And I think this is a good example for this audience because I give it a lot. It's about a certain Nigerian actor called, is it Jim Hike? Yeah, that's how I pronounce it. I don't know if that is how it's supposed to be pronounced. Yes, but I saw Jim Hike in this movie. He's a big star in Nigeria. He has done so many movies. We grew up watching him, and I'm not even from Nigeria myself, but yeah, we know all of these celebrities. And I saw him in this movie. It was terrible. Sorry, but yeah, the movie was really bad. Yeah, but one thing that struck me was the fact that it was his best in the movie. The movie had like a bad picture quality. It had mediocre, some other mediocre actors. It was a good actor. It was a star, but it was the best in that movie. It gave him his best, and it was a long time ago. And one thing I didn't really understand was the reason why it would star in obviously a movie that was not going to go anywhere and still present his best. That was really surprising to me. um why would he do that? And then as I grew older, I realized to say, you never know who saw him from that movie. You never know the person that saw him and said, this is a great actor, let's launch him into a next movie. What if that is where I started from? So it's a constant reminder to say, in whatever you do, wherever you're given an opportunity, always be your best, always give in your best. You never know who's watching. You never know who's there to give you an opportunity. You never know the opportunity that you'll be able to see if you give in your best and if you are there prepared. So preparation is a very important aspect, and it's something that I want you to ask yourself as I'm trying to launch myself into the next level. How prepared am I? What do I do to reach this potential? What have I been doing really? Or am I just a dreamer? Because the thing is, if you don't do anything about something that you feel you have to do, like yeah, I feel like I need to have this influence in this particular field, but what do you do about it? If you don't do anything about it, it becomes a problem. And this is why people are doing anything in their power to have a social media. People are doing so many crazy things on TikTok to gain followers. If you want to be popular on Facebook, TikTok, or anything, what are you doing? What have you been doing about it? What are people going to follow you for? So we have these ideas, we have these plans, we have these aspects, but they are not backed up with any action from us. They are not backed up with any planning for us. And that is the mistake that most of us make. We have great dreams, we have great potential, but we have no sense of preparation. We have no idea where we're going. We have no idea when we began. So it is very important to be intentional. Be intentional about your own life, and ask yourself, why am I where I am today? Ask yourself, what am I doing here and where do I go from here? Believe me, this is what I was saying about expectations, because most of the times, because of what we go through, it tends to lower our expectations so much so that we have no hope at all. But that's not where you're supposed to be. You need to be in the middle. You don't have to be too expectant. You don't have to be less expectant. And what will help you in that way is being prepared, knowing what you want and knowing how you're going to get there. One thing I've come to realize in life is that it takes one big break. Believe me, it takes one big break. Every company you see, everything that other people are doing, it takes one big break to succeed. There are people who started small, yes, but most of the times it will just take one big break. You start small, you're building, but then there was a very great purchase. Like this is the story of most business people. You find that they were moving, selling this and that, and then they just caught a break, and people, there was this big deal that they had and launched them places. That is what it takes for so many people out there. But how were they recognized? It is because of the preparation they did, the branding that they did on themselves. So preparation is also branding. What brand do you have? How do you define yourself? How do you describe yourself? Are you a chameleon when you're among your friends? You are crazy, you go around, you're doing all that. When you're with your mentees, that's when now you're calm. It's very important, in life to establish a brand, because you never really know who's watching, and you never really know the people that you are attracting towards yourself. So it is a very important aspect. Always be prepared. And that is how you gain confidence. And that is how you're going to gain opportunities. And that is how you're going to grow in the direction where you want to go. If you're not intentional about your life, if you don't prepare for your next level, then your life will take whatever direction. They say it's better, it's either you fall for something or you're gonna fall for anything. And that's the big um aspect, because if you don't stand on something, you're gonna fall for anything. So you have to stand on something. You have to have a ground you stand on as a person, because when you do, then you're not gonna just be blown away by anything and everything that comes. So what brands do you have for the kind of person you want to be? What have you done, so far? No, I am, and so many people are attaching so many things to their CVs nowadays. They put this CV on social media. I'm a mentor, I'm a this, I am a that. We put so many of those things, and most of them don't even work. My friend Bob Bande always jokes about the fact that a lot of people will have so many titles that don't even work, so many titles that you know are just there because it is a title. But be intentional, build a brand, be yourself, and ask yourself, really, what am I doing here? Why am I here? What is this? Where is this taking me? And that is one of the most important things. You don't just have to do things for the sake of doing them. You have to be intentional. You have to be prepared. So prepare. If I ask you today, if I gave you, a lot of us people are, praying for, you're praying for 1,000 US dollars, but if it comes to you, what are you going to do with it? You're praying for this big opportunity. You're praying for this boyfriend. You're praying for this girlfriend. You're praying for this life partner. But when the person comes, are you really prepared to host them? And this is why people are asking so many, crazy. Sorry, I was distracted by a message in the group. Sorry about that. Yeah, so a lot of us, are making all of these prayers. We want this, we want that, but are we really prepared for the things that we're praying for? Are we really prepared for who we want to be? If you've been praying for wealth, you've been praying for a breakthrough, but if God gives that to you, what are you gonna do with it? Do you have a plan? I believe you need to figure out a plan. You need to write down a plan and then pray about it. This is what I want to do. God, I want to go here. Have a plan, establish who you want to be, and start from somewhere. If you want to be a preacher, start from somewhere. It begins with sharing. If you have some people who share scripture every day to different people, people who, put on their status, they put something spiritual. Whatever it is that you want to do, begin from somewhere. It's never too late, never too early. If you have an idea, start working on it. It can be as easy, because it's not all about, I feel like working on idea is not about money, it's about time. And if you're willing to dedicate your time to working on an idea, then it's going to be great. And all you work for is one opportunity, and that will shoot up. But an opportunity will not find you if you are unprepared. An opportunity you get unprepared, you're going to waste it. So maybe God is holding that blessing for you because you're not ready, because you're not prepared, because you really want this, but you had to prepare. You really want to have this great breakthrough, but you're not really ready for it. you want to have this relationship. Like for example, in my case, I wanted to have this great relationship. I was like, God, why am I really, you know, not meeting someone I'll really vibe with? You know, it's like you're praying to say, God, I really need this kind of person, not these people that are coming through, but this kind of person. You know, I used to, say, God, I'm looking for, that kind of person. Yeah. But before I got that kind of person I was praying for, I was not ready, because I had all of these ideologies, all of these thoughts that God had to deal with first. So that if He gave me a son, if He gave me, um yeah, I call him God's son, yes. So if He gave me His son, then I will be able to handle that situation. I'll be able to be, the best partner there is. So God held on to that blessing until I was ready. And when I look at that blessing that I have, I look at myself and I'm like, if I had this 2 years ago, because of all of these concepts and ideas and these things these ideas I used to have of, so many aspects of relationships and marriage, it wouldn't have really been a good relationship. It would have been rough, but because God is faithful, it will make you wait, it will work on you, and then it will give you that which you wanted or that which you've always wanted to have. Okay, so I feel like preparation is what I really wanted to emphasize to you, because we blame God, we blame people, but the thing is we are really not ready, sometimes. So if God is not presenting that opportunity to you, that's something that you need to work on. Patience, and God's wait means prepare. I always say that God's wait means prepare. When God says wait, it means, yeah, you have something you have to prepare for, you have a certain thing you have to get rid of. So always tell yourself the truth. I always believe in being honest with myself, because if you're not honest with yourself, then who are you gonna be honest to, and how are you gonna grow? So sit yourself down, ask yourself, I want this from God, but am I really ready for it, and what am I gonna do to prepare for it? There are people who started doing things a long time ago, and by the time they kind of make it, by the time we know them, okay, this person was doing this, you find that they have been at it for years, they've been preparing through, and they caught a break. Like I said earlier, it just takes a big break in life. People work, but you, before you get that break, you need to place yourself at the right place. And what places you at the right place is preparation, because opportunity will not look like opportunity if you don't prepare for it. When you see a town center or you see anything, different people look at it from different angles. If you're not trained in a particular area, if you don't read or you don't have knowledge of a particular area, when you venture into that, or when you're at a place, you can't see it. You can't see it. The next person will see something different. I remember back in Muflera, um, we used to have this, town center before they moved the vendors from the markets, because now vendors were moved into the actual market. I met a friend of mine, and yeah, we started chatting. He's an accountant, so we started chatting, and so something interesting happened, where, as we are chatting, it's a noisy place in town. You know how vending is, people in the streets, they are making so much noise. And then this lady, and then he turned and said, some coins are fallen. And I'm like, how can you tell that coins are fallen in this noisy place? I was so shocked. I was like, how really did you tell that, the coins are fallen, because it's too noisy? and and indeed, because and he went to the lady that was there, and he said, you've dropped some coins. And she looked down and she saw them, and she was like, oh, thank you. And I was like, how in the world did you know that some coins have fallen? And he said, he said something interesting to me. He says, you always listen. You always listen. You always hear the voice you're interested in hearing. You always hear the sound of things that you are interested, or the things that you are um accustomed to hearing. So he works in a bank, he's accustomed to hearing coins fall and everything, and he's also a money person, so he was able to recognize the sound of money, because that is something it does almost all the time, and that is something he's very interested in. So that is the most important aspect of life, to be prepared. How do you prepare? Train your mind, treat your mind to the sound of something that you always want to see. Okay, so if you want to see opportunity, if you want to see, great things in a disguise, in a chaotic world, then be prepared. Expose yourself to that, and that is the key, um, to living life like that. So be prepared. I think that is my message today. Be prepared and be at the right place. Be the right person. Most importantly, more than the right place, be the right person. Never be the wrong person at the right time. Never be the wrong person at the right time, because that is entirely your fault. To sin against yourself. So make sure that in everything that you do, you always place yourself at the right time and always be the right person. Because like I said, I feel like if you are the right person, you're going to place yourself in the right place and you're going to recognize those things. So prepare. I feel that is my key message today. Prepare and be original, be yourself, be intentional, and go out there and make the difference that you want to make. So remember, to write down your next level. What does your next level look like? You want to be great, yes, but how? How do you think you reach there? Who you are as a person. Write that down. Make sure you have a detailed workflow of the kind of person you are and the things that you want to pursue. So yeah, prepare, prepare, prepare. Thank you. I think I'll end here for today. I hope that you guys have learned something, at least. This, yeah, this has been me speaking from my heart entirely. Yeah, because like I said, I prepared the last time, but then it wasn't there, so I got caught up in so many things. I'm in a busy place at the moment, and so yeah, I figured I would just share something from my heart today, and I pray and hope that it has blessed all of you. So thank you so much. I don't know if you're around, Kami. I'm actually done with my
So much.
presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a mind blowing session. Thank you.
You are welcome.